Caribou Capers. In the year 1967, I found myself assigned to Air Force Station Guwahati, where my mandate was to oversee various technical sections and extend support to the squadrons and lodger units operating from the station, all under the watchful eye of the Chief Technical Officer. While the servicing of aircraft and equipment remained the lodger unit's responsibility, my role was to ensure that the necessary technical support was readily available. However, the job itself lacked any real challenge, professionally or intellectually, and I was eager to embark on new developments and innovations related to the Caribou aircraft. The workhorse of the sky. The Caribou is fondly called the workhorse of the sky because of its transport capabilities. Named after the Arctic reindeer, the Caribou has been indispensable to whichever air force it has served. The Caribou is a medium transport aircraft with special feature of short field takeoff and landing and stall warning system. In other words, the aircraft does not need a very long airstrip for taking off and landing. Even 450 meters will suffice for takeoff or landing after passing over an obstacle of 15-meter height. The nickname gravel truck during the Vietnam War highlights its ruggedness and essential role in logistical operations, demonstrating how it could handle tough conditions to deliver crucial supplies to troops. The name is a testimony of its ruggedness and its ability to survive in hostile conditions. The Caribou has been used extensively in an A maintenance role in ALGs, Advanced Landing Grounds, where no other fixed-wing aircraft can land. Where even Caribous cannot land, the only alternative is to fly in a helicopter, which has a specific fuel consumption and lesser payload as against the 3.6 metric tons of the Caribou, which means much higher operating costs. The Caribou of the squadron was used as a night bomber during the 1971 operations for sporadic night bombing of the Tezgaon airfield for 3 nights. Night bombings were carried out generally to pester the repair crew. A Pakistani brigade at Brahmanbaria was bombed on 2 nights. The Caribou was employed to drop decoy paratroopers to distract Pakistan troops. After completing the airdrop, the Caribous would land at Tangail for logistic support and to supply the paratroopers subsequently. After the surrender of the Pakistani army at Dhaka and the liberation of Bangladesh, the Caribou was the first fixed-wing aircraft to land at the severely damaged Tezgaon airfield, where no other fixed-wing aircraft could safely land. All this could be achieved only due to its stall capabilities. The Caribou also had the distinction of flying the first Prime Minister and Liberator of Bangladesh, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and his interim cabinet into liberated Bangladesh for the first time. The Caribou was used to transport Indian VVIPs such as General Manekshaw in and out of Dhaka. Pakistan's VVIP POWs like Lieutenant General A.K. Niazi and its general and brigade level officers were also transported out of Dhaka and Bangladesh in a Caribou. The Caribou served the Indian Air Force for 20 wonderful years, from 1963 to March 1987, when the last flight was flown. Later, the squadron was re-equipped with AN-12S in the mid-80s. The scope of my job did not involve me directly with the Caribou. Usually for a large fleet of aircraft operating in many squadrons, a training facility is established for all technical personnel to familiarize and acquire the skills of trades of the aircraft. This being a single Caribou squadron, such a facility was not established. The technical personnel posted to the squadron got trained on the job by hands-on experience. I was not privileged to be trained in this hands-on experience as I was not in the squadron. Taking the initiative, I pushed myself and familiarized myself with whatever I could with the Caribou. Scope for innovation, the Caribou aircraft. The Caribou squadron, with its numerous detachments scattered across various locations, offered ample scope for innovation. After delving into the intricacies of the Caribou aircraft, I quickly discovered that its short takeoff and landing stall system was a consistent source for grounding problems. Maintenance and snag rectifications often resembled a game of trial and error, relying heavily on air test reports and the insights of a few seasoned tradesmen. A thorough examination of maintenance records corroborated my observations. The mandatory air tests following stall snag ratifications frequently led to emergence of further issues, particularly within the hydraulic and fuel systems. Typically, it would require 4 to 5 air tests to reach a semblance of reliability. There was no structured troubleshooting process in place. Instead, we were mired in a cycle of guesswork stemming from a dearth of adequate literature, ground equipment, and tools necessary for effective aircraft servicing. Compounding these challenges was the prevailing attitude among some personnel, an unyielding chalta hai mindset that stymied progress and innovation. Going by my experience in the Hunter Squadron, I decided setting up a static test rig for the stall warning system would be an ideal contribution, and that one I must pursue. I studied the problem in depth. I had so much spare time on hand compared with my hectic tenure at the Hunter Squadron. I used it to study the Caribou's electrical systems with emphasis on stall warning systems. I got the hang of it mostly, but there was some knowledge missing. I figured that the next best way to gather more knowledge by rigging and fabricating a table model. The main obstacle, however, was getting the working items, which was next to impossible. To keep more Caribous in operational conditions, these items were taken out, usually referred to as cannibalization, from the grounded Caribous. My table model was unauthorized, so there was no question of drawing items from the stores. Then where to find these items? Making a case for locating of these items was a sure shot approach to getting ridiculed and branded mad, knowing the bureaucratic mindset of all around. The second best alternative was to fabricate the necessary items from damaged Caribous. At least this would help in forging a better understanding of the systems. Anyway, it was only a table model and no harm would be done. But then there was the difficulty of how to collect the items from the damaged Caribous, which were mostly lying close to the detachments. I was not on the squadron's rolls to be able to go to detachments and explore the feasibility. The idea had to be kept in hibernation till the right opportunities emerged. Nevertheless, I started quietly collecting a few components, to be frank, relics from an aircraft that had met an unfortunate fate quite some time back and hibernating in the stores. The protocol, of course, was clear. Under no circumstances should parts from a damaged or crashed aircraft be repurposed for serviceable aircraft. The quality standards demanded, and rightly so, that anything salvaged from a wreck be sent back to the appropriate repair agencies for proper disposal or refurbishment. As per rules, components recovered from crashed aircraft must be sent back to the concerned departments. Yet, despite this, various parts remained scattered, half forgotten, in the nooks and corners of the airbase, overlooked by officials. These components, strewn about like discarded memories of the crash, had been abandoned to the elements. Some were beyond use, little more than twisted scraps of metal. But by some stroke of fortune, some were still in partial working condition. Not pristine, perhaps, but sufficient for my purposes. Quietly, methodically, I gathered what I needed, pieces of a broken puzzle to fuel the idea taking root in my mind. Later, I was promoted to flight lieutenant and posted to the Caribou Squadron, still stationed at the same base. This new position gave me more freedom to pursue my project, gathering the necessary components for my work. My role involved frequent visits to various detachments to maintain the Caribou aircraft, but it also provided me with the invaluable opportunity to gain first-hand experience. I traveled extensively, flying to remote airstrips and advanced landing grounds scattered across the northeastern states and into Bhutan. These detachments were often located in the most challenging environments. The ALGs had short, makeshift airfields barely long enough for landing, with uneven surfaces and unpredictable weather that could turn hostile without warning. The short takeoff and landing stall warning system was critical in such circumstances, a lifeline in these rough conditions. Despite couple of handicaps, like primitive runways and erratic weather, our pilots demonstrated an extraordinary skill and daring that left me in awe. The short field takeoff and landing warning system, as the name suggests, is extremely helpful and, in fact, essential for operations on short and makeshift airfields. At that time, all advanced landing grounds had short airfields. Not only were they short, but the landing surfaces were far from smooth, unlike regular runways, and to make matters worse, the weather conditions were often unpredictable. Despite these challenges and obstacles, our pilots performed remarkably well. I flew as much as possible, not only to deepen my technical understanding of the stall system, but also for the sheer thrill of it. Each flight was an experience, a masterclass in courage and precision, as I watched these pilots perform feats of flying that defied the odds. Many of them became personal heroes to me, role models for their sheer audacity and grace under pressure. Their performances in those trying conditions were nothing short of remarkable, and I was fortunate to witness their brilliance firsthand. Static test rig. The construction of the static test rig was a slow but purposeful endeavor. Fabricating it allowed me to gain a deeper understanding of the Caribou systems, a process as some of the subsystems had all the required components in working order. I meticulously measured voltage, current and impedance at various points, carefully charting the data piece by piece, step by step, until I had a comprehensive map of a fully functioning subsystem. Over time, I had gathered enough data for most of the entire system. With the help of this accumulated knowledge, after analyzing about 4 to 5 snags, I could now pinpoint the faulty component with a fair degree of certainty by reviewing the pilot's reports and conducting a brief discussion. This allowed me to dramatically reduce the need for repetitive air tests, which in turn shortened aircraft downtime and increased availability for operations. Though this contribution was not as widely recognized and popular as the Mod/Hunter/India/15 innovation, I felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. It was tangible proof that I had made a difference, even if it was largely unnoticed on the base. As a flying officer, I was sent to the School of Foreign Languages in New Delhi to learn Russian language. Midway through the course, I was promoted to flight lieutenant and returned to the Caribou Squadron, still at Guwahati. Wing Commander V.C. Mankotia, the station commander, was a capable and inspiring leader, often inquiring about my progress on the test rig. He even visited my workspace on several occasions, showing a keen interest in my work. The squadron commander, on the other hand, was a different sort altogether. A good pilot, but lacking in leadership, preferring the company of junior officers in games of rummy and paplu rather than fostering the discipline expected of his rank. Despite this, I persisted. The station commander's interest was a subtle but powerful motivator, urging me to see my project through, even as the squadron commander and consequently entire flying staff remained indifferent to it all. However, it was a quiet victory in the end, one that no one else may have seen, but one that I knew had made a difference where it mattered most, significantly during heavy commitment of refugee evacuation. The episode surrounding my posting to the Caribou Squadron was an interesting one. While officially posted at Guwahati Air Base, I attended a Russian language school at the School of Foreign Languages in Jind House, New Delhi, as previously mentioned. The class was small, comprising 5 officers and about 9 senior non-commissioned officers. The course lasted approximately 12 weeks, if memory serves me right. During that time, I received news of my promotion to flight lieutenant. It so happened that I was flown back to Guwahati by Service Courier. A Super Constellation aircraft picked up my new rank the same day, a Saturday no less, enjoyed a pleasant weekend with my mates, and was back in Delhi by Monday. To my civilian friends, this rapid travel was the stuff of fantasy. Years later, they still reminded me of that whirlwind trip as though it were some remarkable feat of modern engineering. After completing the language course, I returned to Guwahati and reported to the Caribou Squadron. But there had been murmurs during the course about something much bigger. Preparation for a long trip abroad. Anti-skid chokes. While still in Delhi, undergoing the course, we were informed that the Russian language training had been arranged because we had been selected for a potential extended stay in the USSR. The exact details were vague, but the mission sounded significant. We were told to keep our bags packed, ready for departure at short notice. Even as we left the course, the warning echoed. Don't unpack fully. You might be summoned at any moment. A trip to the USSR in those days was no small thing. It was a coveted opportunity, and every one of us were looking forward to it. The mission was reportedly related to the acquisition of a new medium bomber aircraft. But fate, in its peculiar irony, had other plans. As it turned out, the modification I had pioneered, mod/Hunter/India/15, and if incorporated as per the large mod leaflet I submitted, would have effectively filled the gap and served that this new medium bomber was meant to address. The enhanced Hunter fleet could now handle deeper penetrations, and the procurement of a new bomber from the USSR was no longer a pressing requirement. Thus, the trip was quietly shelved. We were living on half the kit till posted out, but never received the orders. I couldn't help but marvel at the twist of fate. My own creation had become an obstacle to what might have been a career-defining experience abroad. It was as though the new claws I had given the Hawker Hunter had grounded me, the very man who had designed them. Like anti-skid chokes that prevent an aircraft from moving forward using its own thrust, my modification had held me back. But truth be told, I harbored no regrets. The mission had been accomplished, and that was what mattered. A sense of nationhood. During my stay at the Central Vista Mess, I witnessed a moment that still lingers in my memory, stirring emotions of pride and reflection. The mess, nestled in a corner plot, was flanked by Janpath on one side, Dr. Rajendra Prasad Road on the other, and at a distance of some 150 meters, across the manicured lawns and fountains, Rajpath. On many late evenings, after dinner, I would take a stroll with friends along these famous boulevards, enjoying the peace that settled over the city as night deepened. But on the freezing nights of 23rd and 25th of January, something remarkable unfolded before our eyes. As we walked along Janpath, we noticed a large group of villagers huddled together in the bitter Delhi cold. They had no proper shelter, only thin, tattered kumbals draped over their shoulders to ward off the biting wind. They sat there, enduring the harsh winter night in the open air. We wondered what could possibly have driven these simple folk to put themselves through such discomfort. The answer soon became clear. It was the call of their nation. They had braved the cold and travelled long distances for the chance to witness the Republic Day parade or its full dress rehearsal. The mere thought of seeing the spectacle of India's military might and cultural pride was enough to keep them rooted to the spot through those long freezing hours. That scene struck me deeply. It was a stark reminder of the rustic nationalism and unwavering patriotism that burned in the hearts of these villagers. Many of them illiterate, perhaps unaware of the finer details of statecraft, but driven by a raw and pure love for their country. It was an eye-opener. The strength of our nation, I realized, lay not in the urban centers or the elite, but in the hearts of these ordinary rural folk whose sense of nationhood, belonging and loyalty was unshakable. Today, of course, such scenes are no longer common. The stringent security measures for the Republic Day parade have ensured that the public can no longer gather freely as they once did. But the memory of those villagers remain a powerful symbol of what truly defines the spirit of India. In the cities, under the glare of neon lights and amidst the hustle of commercial life, one's sense of nationalism can easily fade, diluted by the pursuit of material gain and the influence of the West. For many urbanites, the outward trappings of modernity seem to obscure their connection to the roots of their nationhood. Their patriotism, if it exists at all, is often dormant, subdued by the relentless march of consumerism and the distractions of urban life. But in those villages, untouched by the trappings of the modern world, the flame of patriotism burns bright. It is there, in the simple hearts of rural India, that the true strength of the nation lies. On the other hand, there's a darker side to the world of military service, one that emerges when we read of retired defense officers or their associates embroiled in questionable relationships with arms dealers. These revelations are disquieting, raising a host of uncomfortable questions. There are whispers of a deeply entrenched lobby, particularly within the upper echelons of armed forces and the Ministry of Defense. One cannot help but wonder, who do these individuals truly serve, and where do their loyalties lie? The spectre of corruption, where men once sworn to defend the nation appear compromised by greed and influence, is a troubling one indeed. echelons in maintenance. But while such suspicions brew at the top, the machinery of the Air Force continues to function at multiple levels, a finely tuned hierarchy designed to ensure the operational readiness of aircraft and equipment. At the heart of this system is the concept of echelons in maintenance, where the task of servicing an aircraft is broken down into four distinct levels of responsibility. The first, known as DSS or Daily Servicing Section, deals with the immediate needs of the aircraft before and after each flight. Pre-flight checks, turnaround inspections, and the essential last-minute reviews are all carried out there. These checks ensure the aircraft's functionality, charging of gases and air, securing or releasing safety devices, explosive components, and lashing the aircraft. In DSS, basic trade knowledge and familiarity with the equipment are enough to keep the process running smoothly. But as one ascends through the levels, the complexity increases. The second line of servicing, referred to as R&S, repair and servicing, demands a higher degree of technical proficiency. The personnel involved here are often more seasoned, possessing the skill set required to delve deeper into the technicalities of an aircraft's operation. The workforce is split between DSS and R&S, but while DSS always remains integral to the squadron, R&S operates under the broader umbrella of the station's command structure. R&S is the domain of the Chief Technical or Engineering Officer, who reports directly to the station commander. This arrangement provides greater technical oversight and allows for more flexible approach to repairs and maintenance. Here, technical challenges can be met with the kind of expertise and supervision necessary to ensure that every aircraft remains battle-ready, no matter how complex the task. In many ways, the efficiency of these systems is what keeps the Air Force operating at peak performance. Yet, the lingering question of external influence, a shadow network working for personal gain rather than national interest, casts a long and uneasy shadow over the integrity of these vital processes. At Air Force Station Guwahati, the station commander found himself confronted with a dilemma once. Two of his senior technical officers had become more of a liability than an asset. Their behavior, marked by incompetence and questionable conduct, had eroded his confidence in them. In a move that was both pragmatic and ruthless, he decided to sideline them. One was relegated to somewhat redundant role of maintenance safety, responsible for spotting and eliminating foreign objects that might jeopardize maintenance, oil patches, loose debris, anything that could be sucked into the intake of a jet engine or cluttering the hangars and taxi tracks. Station commander created a new designation apparently to mock the officer, Inspector General, a designation unheard of till then in the Air Force. It was a demotion in all but name, a symbolic task devoid of real responsibility. For the second line of servicing of the Caribou aircraft, arguably one of the most critical tasks on the base, the commander turned to me. Already in charge of the first line servicing, DSS, as the squadron technical IC, I was handed this new role as well, effectively placing both lines of Caribou maintenance under my supervision. The work at DSS, though necessary, was not as frantic or demanding as what I had experienced in the Hunter Squadron. There, timing was everything. Precision down to the second was essential to ensure the aircraft was prepared, launched, and ready for combat sorties. Here, the problems were different in nature, but no less challenging. The main issue was managing the logistics of the base, one permanent detachment and 2 or 3 temporary ones spread across locations. It required positioning airmen technicians and securing material and equipment with careful planning. Mohanbadi, one of the most vital detachments, was among the outposts under my purview. Despite the increased responsibility, I didn't feel overworked or overwhelmed. Rather, it was quite the contrary. In comparison to my days at the Hunter Squadron, where every moment was a critical balancing act, this task was almost leisurely. Working from the R&S hangar allowed me to keep a closer eye on the aircraft and maintain tighter control over the technical activities. It was a challenge, but one that I embraced. Frankly, I found the work enjoyable. I relished the responsibility, and the satisfaction of running a tight, efficient operation filled me with a quiet sense of pride. It was far from being a burden. It was a role I could manage with ease, In fact, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Hands-on experience with the aircraft and working alongside the airmen technicians was not just part of my job. It was a source of knowledge and, more importantly, it earned me the respect of my men. This rapport with my team came naturally to me. It wasn't something I had to consciously cultivate or manage. It was simply an extension of who I was. Leadership, I had come to believe, was not about issuing orders from a distance, but about working shoulder to shoulder with those under your command. By doing so, I gained valuable insights to their challenges and, in turn, different forms of practical knowledge that no manual or classroom could provide, and above all, leading skilled manpower. On more than one occasion, my airmen and I have ventured out to the sites of crashed aircraft, salvaging what we could, parts and components that appeared serviceable and undamaged. Together, we backloaded these items to the appropriate repair agencies for thorough testing. It was the kind of hands-on work that I found deeply satisfying. There was a shared sense of purpose between myself and my bold airmen, as I like to call them, especially when we ventured through the rough, mountainous terrain where the caribou often flew. It was no easy task, of course. Many of the crash sites were in the most inhospitable places imaginable. Gorges, dense forests atop remote hills where even a foothold was hard to come by. The caribou operated in this unforgiving environment, flying in and out of short, makeshift airfields. These conditions demanded precision, daring, and a degree of technical mastery from both the pilots and the men who kept the aircraft flying. Salvaging parts from these treacherous locations was never routine, but the sense of accomplishment that came with recovering valuable components and often preventing further loss was a reward in itself. It strengthened the bond between me and my men and deepened my understanding of the challenges they faced on a day-to-day basis. There are times when the caribou became unserviceable at an advanced landing ground, and getting it operational again is no small feat. The challenge of repairing a caribou at an ALG is compounded by the fact that access to critical components is often at awkward elevated positions. The aircraft itself stands high off the ground, making any attempt at servicing or repairs a major logistical hurdle. Lift arrangements needed to be improvised, a task that in those remote locations could become an exercise in ingenuity and resourcefulness. Even at our home base, the challenge remained. The lack of appropriate ladders or scaffolds meant that reaching certain parts of the aircraft, particularly those at higher elevations, was next to impossible, even in the comfort of a fully equipped hangar. Now imagine facing the same issue out in the field at some remote ALG with next to nothing. One instance stands out in particular. We were dealing with a serious problem on the rudder of a caribou aircraft. After trying several methods, it became painfully clear that the only viable solution was to find a suitable ladder or scaffold to reach the problem area. But such equipment was nowhere to be found locally. My search for the elusive ladder took me from the AHQ to various maintenance directorates, contacting every equipment depot I could think of. Finally, I tracked it down at the Manauri ED of all places. At this point, our station commander, Wing Commander Mankotia, got personally involved. He pushed hard, using every connection and resource at his disposal to secure permission to retrieve the scaffold. Once the approval came through, we arranged for the equipment to be airlifted to Guwahati. I personally went to the ED to ensure that every piece of the scaffold was collected, packed, and ready for transport. When the scaffold finally arrived, our airmen, displaying their characteristic ingenuity, had it erected in double time. In short order, the rudder repairs were completed and the caribou was ready to fly once again. It was a testament not only to the importance of improvisation, but to the unyielding determination that often defines military operations in the field. The sense of accomplishment when the aircraft took to the skies again was palpable, a silent victory earned by teamwork, persistence, and a dash of old-fashioned problem-solving. Despite my own initiatives, this particular episode serves as a shining testament to the remarkable skill and dedication of our technical airmen. Their resilience, ingenuity, and ability to rise to the occasion under the most challenging conditions is something I truly salute. I remain immensely proud to have not only led but also worked shoulder to shoulder with them, sharing in the triumphs and trials alike. An officer's primary duties are, of course, the core of their professional responsibilities directly tied to the area of expertise. However, there exists another tier of responsibilities that often goes unnoticed by those outside the military framework: secondary duties. These are professional tasks that, while not directly connected to one primary role, are essential for the smooth, efficient, and dynamic operation of the unit. They ensure that the gears of military life continue to turn with precision even when the challenges of the battlefield or the airfield have been set aside. In every unit, officers are almost always assigned secondary duties alongside their primary roles. These range from administrative oversight to maintaining order and morale within the officers' mess, where activities such as managing food, the bar, entertainment, and accommodation fall under officers' purview. These seemingly peripheral responsibilities are in fact critical. They form the backbone of a cohesive and vibrant unit, contributing to the overall readiness and well-being of its members. It is these tasks that, though unsung, provide the framework for an efficient and disciplined force ready for any eventuality. The ability to balance these secondary duties while maintaining focus on one's primary mission is a hallmark of a capable officer. And yet, in every challenge, it is the collective effort of all ranks that makes success possible. The secondary duties at a station are diverse and multifaceted. Among these, managing air warriors' messes, wet and dry canteens, cinema theatres, cultural functions, and sports and games are some of the key activities that contribute to the well-being and morale of the personnel. Additionally, there are secondary duties directly connected to official tasks, such as conducting audit, boards, inquiries, investigations, and managing passive air defense and ground defense operations. Serving as the duty officer is another crucial role that officers regularly undertake. These secondary duties, though not directly related to primary responsibilities, are vital for the overall functioning and efficiency of the station. Technical officers are generally entrusted with significant secondary duties. One of my initial assignments was managing the station's cinema theatre, which was then a makeshift temporary structure, a large bamboo shed with a 16 projector and screen. Over time, the theatre was overhauled and better facilities added to enhance the viewing experience. A major upgrade was the installation of a 35mm projector, and a new screen replaced the old 16mm setup. The transformation significantly elevated the quality and appeal of the theatre, providing the personnel with a much improved recreational facility. I was given the additional charge of the Air Warriors mess. I had taken rounds of the mess to see if everything was in order. I discovered that provisions for cold drinking water would add to better facility, especially in summer months. Two large, old cooling machines that were not functioning, lying in some corner, flashed in my mind. I secured sanction of station commander for repair. I formed a team and worked to repair and reinstall these machines in the Air Warriors mess. They proved very useful in the ensuing hot summer months. Later, I was officers' mess secretary. I held this position for more than a year. During my tenure, I successfully conducted two major functions. These functions were well received, earning appreciation from everyone. The station commander promoted me as Deputy President Mess Committee, PMC. A flight lieutenant, who was senior to me, was appointed as my secretary, much to my embarrassment. The station commander's decision to appoint a senior officer as my secretary, despite objections, demonstrates the sometimes unexpected nature of military appointments and the authority of commanding officers to make unconventional decisions.